Welcome to another episode of the podcast, From the Depths of Darkness to the Light of Success. I am your host, Chris Swiech, and on this podcast, we talk about mental health, addictions, eating disorders, ADHD, and really anything anyone is afraid to talk about, not available. We talk about it on this show. I believe everyone's story is valuable at the end of the day. Does not matter what walk of life you come from, you are all welcome on my platform. You can check me out over on Instagram at Depths of Dark Side. You'll hit me up, follow me, DM me if you ever need a shoulder to lean on, someone to chat to. My DMs are always open over there. You can email me, depthsofdarkside@gmail.com, and go follow the show over on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications so you never miss an episode. And you can find the show over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, really wherever you can find an audio podcast, my show is on there. No further ado, we got Mike Faria, JerzeyMike, on the show today, guys. Want to give it a little way and tell them a little bit about yourself, Mike?
Yes. First off, what's up, Chris? Thank you for having me on, man. I love how you started off your show, that all walks of life are welcome on here and that everybody's story is, to me, I everything you said, I agree with. Everybody's story is so powerful, man. It doesn't matter what you've been through. Everybody has a testimony. I like the way you started. I just wanted to say that. But a little bit about myself. My name is Mike Faria. I am 38 years old. I am a father of two boys, also an alcoholic, recovering alcoholic. And I live in New Jersey. That's why I call myself JerzeyMike.
It's like almost like a name from Jersey Shore, you know?
Yeah. Or the sub place, right? The sub guy, the JerzeyMike's the guy that does the subs.
Yeah. But Mike, your journey through your coma and the reflections you experienced sound incredibly profound when I found your story. But can you share with us some of those most impactful realizations you had about yourself and your life during that time when you went into that coma? Getting
Yeah.
deep already, right off the start, man.
Yeah, let's go right off the start. One of the biggest things I learned about myself during that time was how scared I was, man. I was shit scared for my life at that time. Up until I started getting sick, I was always I thought I was this fearless man. I walked around with my head up, chin out, and thought I didn't fear anything. One of those guys that was just like, I don't give a fuck. Get out of my way. If you're in my way, I'm going to move you out my way. And until I got to death's door, man, and I was scared for my life. I'd never been so scared in my life as far as facing myself, seeing myself in the mirror the way I was. It felt like a decade hit me in the face. And that was a heavy, profound moment for me. And I kept running from it. I'd look in the mirror, run to the bottle, drink it away, make this reality more acceptable by being drunk or blacked out and not being here. That was really hard for me to deal with. Even so much so that I remember the first day I looked in the mirror and I saw my eyes were yellow. And this happened like overnight, the night before, drinking, everything's whatever it is. And the next morning I wake up and I look in the mirror and I'm like, okay, something's fucked up here. Maybe it's the light. And I start changing light bulbs in my bathroom and thinking, trying to change the setting to make it fit my false truth in my head that I'm okay. And that didn't work. And even with that, I didn't want to face it. I tried to hide it. I was very much hiding in my house at that time. I wouldn't even go outside to see the mailman drop off mail. And if I did step outside, I put sunglasses on so nobody could see my eyes being yellow. That was probably the most intense moment, was seeing myself the way I was. It was heavy.
I imagine it would be, I remember days I didn't want to go outside. I didn't go outside for days and days, and people looking at me. I love how you talk about my ego still needs to check itself at the door on the way in, even though going in 4 years clean and sober here. I still got a big ego. Sometimes I get so damn defensive when Chris is always right. until my wife puts me in check and check myself at the door. She tells me that even when I talk, she can tell that I'm puffing my chest sometimes. She's like, you got to stop that. Like, your ego's bigger than your head some days. And I thought the fuckets as well. I had the case of the fuckets all the time, like you. And for those listening too, and Mike's talking about his yellow eyes, if you go over to his Instagram at JerzeyMike, that's like knocking at death's door, the one picture pinned at the top of his page there, man. Like, his eyes are yellow. He's not shitting you, man. Like, yellower than piss. Like, when that's what drugs and alcohol will do to you, man, shutting down your system slowly.
Yeah, man. My eyes turned yellow and my skin started to turn yellow. Everything started to turn yellow, including all the fluids that were coming out of my body. I was throwing up like a lot of black coffee grounds. I was bleeding internally and things like that. I just couldn't look at that. I would see it and be like, fuck this. I'll be fine. Fuck it. Let me go take something. I ordered some liver pills off of Amazon at that time, some milk thistles, a bunch of different supplements, thinking maybe that could help me out. And trying to drink a lot of water in between drinking my alcohol, thinking, let me try to supplement something healthy here with the crazy binge drinking that I'm doing, thinking that these symptoms might go away and I'm going to wean myself off this. I'm going to come off this binge slowly and get out of it. But when my eyes were yellow, my skin started turning yellow and I'd lay there passed out looking at my kids sometimes, like waking up in and out of blackouts. They'd be playing on the couch. I'd be on the living room on my recliner. It felt like death, man. I just felt like it was there. And I felt like I couldn't build the courage to get out. I couldn't do it. There was no, I'd made, I don't know if I made a decision or not, but I could not be like, someone help me. I couldn't muster the courage to admit that I completely fucked this all up and I didn't have it together anymore.
And what was the turning point? Take us back to the beginning sort of thing, though, too. Was there stuff that happened way earlier on in your life that sort of drove you to the point that you are this severe alcoholic now at this point? But many years ago, was there something that sort of triggered it and just kept it going? You were just shoving these emotions and these feelings down with the booze?
Like, yeah, but as a teenager, I was always very curious about all kinds of drugs and things like that. I had experimented with coke at a really early age, 13, 14 years old, my freshman year in Florida. I was living there and we were doing blow. And from there, went to heavier drugs. I went, I think I tried everything under the sun except heroin on a needle. That was something I couldn't bring myself to do, but ecstasy, just everything that I could party with and try in high school, I wanted to do. And I did. And that was all a really fun kind of experimental time in my life where I wasn't dealing with the dependency issues that came with all those things. They were more short-term dependency things rather than these like intense long-term things that came later in adulthood. Uh, I didn't have alcohol, just wasn't my thing in high school. It was drugs. And as I became an adult, I lost somebody that was just really close to me, a cousin of mine this whole thing played a big impact on a turning point in my life where I was heavily coping with alcohol um, for that. And it just proceeded into the career choice that I had selected for myself. I had went into construction at 25. I had a son on the way and alcohol was just the norm. It was just like, we're at work. What are you doing after work? Gonna go drink some fucking beers and go do this and that. And even when I was a year sober before my son was born. I stopped drinking, got myself together, got a job and started to build this little career for myself. And when when I saw I had things together, I just went with the wave of what I thought was the norm and okay. I didn't see any harm in me barbecuing 3 times a week, having beers when I get home and doing shots and doing my stuff and going into work and being completely functional the next day, even successful. And I did that for a long time. But the heavy thing that really made this intense turning point in my life was my family falling apart about 4 or 5 months, about 6 months prior to my coma. That there had been infidelity on the part of the mother of my kids. And it was just, it fucking destroyed my world, man. The only thing I had holding my legs up was my family. And when I saw that whole vision crumble after I couldn't really live with the fact of what happened, I couldn't accept that, or uh, that's when I really felt like I had not much to live for. Along with all the things that I think a lot of men deal with in those kind of cases, thinking, my, I'm going to lose my family. I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose everything I've ever invested in with love and energy. Just everything I had tried to build was just gone. And I keeled over and got in a fetal position and drank my life away in those thoughts for months.
Yeah, and then those thoughts can really take over your body, whichever way you look at it. And I'm no angel myself either, and putting someone through that must be triggering for you or give you PTSD in a sense, because I've put my wife through so much as well. So I can feel yours pain coming in, putting myself in your shoes in that sense, because that would be very triggering for anyone and really set them on a spiral of, what's life worth if this is the way it is. And I'm sorry that these things have happened to you, man. You picked yourself back up, man. We're here. We're sober now. And that's the amazing thing here, where we get to talk about these things and we're not judged on this show or on this platform or anything like that, man. And you get to share your story openly, honestly. Some of the things we might talk about might suck or might hurt, but it's the real raw us. And I love that, Mike. That's amazing, man. It's inspiring to hear that you found a sense of grace, mercy, and gratitude during this whole experience in your coma. How have these feelings continued, though, to influence your life and your relationships with your loved ones since waking up?
The biggest impact on my life today is a lot of what I've experienced going into my coma. That whole the whole last couple of days that I was dying in my house and here and not here, leading into the coma where I was asleep, I felt like I went for a ride. Everybody was at the hospital for 3 weeks, my family and friends thinking I'm asleep. And to me, I was on this other platform, this other spectrum of life, this other place where I felt like I had to just feel everything I had put away for 35 years. At that time, I was 35, but it was a very emotional, spiritual, intense experience.
Is it almost being like on an experience, like on some psychedelics almost, but not? I'm just
I,
asking from a person that's never experienced this, obviously.
I,
So it's
I,
probably like an
I,
outer body experience too.
it was, but when in the comparison with psychedelics, like in psychedelics, there's a lot of visuals going on, right? And a lot of things are happening that are more extravagant to our eyes than our reality here. Whereas to like what I was experiencing seemed very much like a real reality without the intense visuals that would normally happen in your psychedelics, but very real and dreamlike in a sense, like jumping from stage to stage. The first thing I remember in waking up was that I thought I had never even been put in the coma. Like my family had told me that right when I got to the hospital, I was immediately rushed and induced and put in an induced coma, that I was going to have a heart attack. And for me played out a completely different scenario where I was like out in the waiting room pleading with different family members and law enforcement and ambulances, telling them I'm okay. I don't need to go in. And it was very much a whole different experience. And it led to different, it would jump from like scene to scene where then I'd be walking around the hospital and going into a restaurant and trying to order a drink. And this is while I'm asleep and I'm trying to drink and I can't taste anything. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Can I have another one? And I'm getting frustrated. And it's like door after door to a loop that never satisfies the sensation I'm trying to achieve in these moments. And even got to some really heartfelt situations where, my kids were around me in the hospital and I'm yelling to them and they couldn't hear me. And I'm saying, Jaden, Mason, they were playing as if they had no idea who I was. So many different doors to different things that I woke up with so many different emotions, but the biggest one was just gratitude, man. Gratitude. When I opened my eyes, realized this wasn't a door to another door. Finally landed somewhere real. And what a sensation it was. It was like I was born again. It was like being just welcomed back into the worst fucking scenario possible, but how fucking grateful I was to be in it.
Yeah, I'm probably not taking your life for granted anymore because our health is our wealth as well. And that being said, man, what were your first thoughts? Like, did you want to have a drink when you woke up from that coma? And I'm not saying this is a trigger, but, or were you like, I'm done with this stuff? Was that when you realized I got to give this up or it's fucking life or death at this point?
When I woke up, those thoughts really didn't even occur, even though I knew what had got myself there. I was still on the brink of death. Like my fucking liver was shot. They were like, we have no clue what's gonna play out here for you, buddy. You don't qualify for a transplant. And I was more concerned with if these were gonna be some of my last days or not, even to in any consideration to alcohol. But I did not wake up with any craving for a fucking drink. I had woke up like I had been ran over by a 747 plane, man. It felt like my body was just, I couldn't walk, couldn't use the bathroom. I had these pans that was a disaster. So imagine this scenario. I'm 270 pounds. I really haven't used much of the bathroom. They remove all these catheters and things from me. And now I'm supposed to start this natural process of de-swelling of all of these things. And they're draining me. They had drained me a couple of times while I was asleep. It's massive disaster. I'd say the first 3 days I went to the bathroom anywhere between 30 to 40 times a day. And I had a patch on my back that they write a number every time I went. But alcohol was just so far off my mind. I was just trying to make sure I was alive and I was just enjoying what was in front of me. Hospital food. It was the most gratifying experience I've ever had in my entire life was drinking water when I woke up. It was literally, it's an experience I'll never ever forget was how that water tasted when I woke up because they had removed the breathing tube I had in for 3 weeks. And when I tasted that water, it was every desire I had that existed was complete by that water touching my lips at that moment.
So were you in the coma then for 3 weeks almost? That's crazy, man. To think, from a couple, because when was the last drink you had? It was 2020, right?
No. And
No.
that's no. And that's to further answer your question. In that moment, was that a turning point in my life? Yes. Was it the turning point for me in my last experience with alcohol? No. There was about a 3 to 4 month recovery process that my body had suffered such trauma. Those thoughts weren't even coming through my head. I was just getting myself together. I was doing IV infusions at home because it was COVID. During COVID, I got sent home. I had to recover all at home because the hospitals were going nuts. And doing the process of physical rehabilitation, learning how to walk again, homeschooling with my kids, and just getting myself back together. Not one alcoholic thought ran through my head for about 4 months. And then I got myself together and I'm put back together, and I go in for a doctor visit with my hepatologist. And she's, Mike, I have amazing news for you. And I'm like, I know you do because I feel amazing. And she's, your liver has returned to full function. And I'm like, okay, well, that just opened up a whole new door.
The thoughts are probably just like, whoa, I can leave here and go right to the beer store, the liquor store, gas station.
Flying, going through my head. And one of the biggest things that in the main front part,
Probably the worst thing she could have told an alcoholic.
but yeah, you're good to go. Really? Okay then. But she also did say after, she's like, don't think that you can ever have a drink again, because in all reality, your liver's functioning. Just because it's a full function doesn't mean anything. I have patients with cirrhosis that have full functioning livers. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that doesn't, whatever. In here, out there, full function is all I heard. So I'm like, okay, this appointment's wrapped up. And one of the biggest things for me was that I had just come out of a 10-year relationship, and here I am, 65% back together. And I'm like, okay, I want to get back on like the social scene and meeting women and like just socializing again. I had just been in a hole recovering like a hermit crab for months and months. So as I'm going into the dating scene, of course, one of the main things is like everybody's drinking again around me, and I hadn't seeked any kind of AA or programs or things like that. I went from dying, getting better to let me try to date. And
Best thing for coming, that's top of our list. Priorities.
I got myself back together. I gotta go date. So I put myself in a situation where I was out with a woman, and let me tell you, one of the biggest things that night out with this woman going through my mind was remembering getting home. The first night I got home from the hospital, and I let my dad help lay me down. And I sat and I prayed and prayed that whole night saying, please, if I could live to see my kids, I'm not going to fuck this up again. I'm there looking at this woman, and I'm going over all the prayers I said to myself that night getting home. And I mustered up the courage to fucking drink. And it started to lead me back into a shitty place. And it didn't take too long. After that night, I started going through more difficult thoughts in the coming months that were like, I guess what they call survivor's guilt. I'm over there now thinking that I'm better and I can moderately drink and do this. And I'm wondering, like, what the fuck am I doing here, man? What am I doing here? I just came from this crazy spiritual experience, and I'm here for what reason? Just a lot of things going through my head, questioning my existence at that time. And I continued dating and continued to try drinking moderately. After, I'd say 3 months, there was a night I got really sick again. And I had went out. It was the first time that I got sick. Like I felt sick. I was out drinking. Got back to the house and just started puking profusely. And it just brought back so many feelings of when I was getting close to dying. And that night, it was a heavy night. I spent the night crying. I spent the night crying in my bathroom, puking. And I went a little while without drinking. And then again, would try to drink in like restaurant settings, thinking, I can't let go of this idea to say, I'm going to remove the option of me not being able to drink. How can I live unfairly than everybody else? Like everyone else has a choice. I kept feeling like I was doing myself an injustice or feeling like maybe it's almost like removing a baby from a baby blanket or a bottle. I was like, if I take this option away, it was just too hard for me to remove the option. So I kept playing with that. And another major turning point for me was like, I finally met somebody in the dating scene. And this person heard my story. They knew I was like living life trying to drink moderately. And they said that they were going to try to get sober and be sober with me. They already weren't like big drinkers, but it was a relationship that didn't last, but it was good in the sense of it taught me a lot of foundation work as far as like feeling things through. In that relationship, I did a lot of things that were new to me, like jumping into nature and just different things that kind of fulfilled this void that I had always kept with this open with this option of drinking. Through that whole time, for the majority of that relationship, I was sober. And then after it, so this will be my sober day after it, which was 2022, in the summer of 2022, in August, my uncle passed away and I went out, drank, and it was like a tough time for me. And right after that, I'd say about 3 days later, I had diverticulitis kick in, which is another health issue. I started to have flare ups and intense pain. I went to the hospital and they're like, your large intestine is fucked up. We need to remove a piece of your colon. This had to do with alcohol and the abuse and the things that I had done to my body. That was the last major turning point for me, was when I found out I had to do that surgery, and it was August 23rd. So I'm not a big counter of days, but I think it's 400 and some days, maybe 405 or 406, something like that.
That's amazing, man. Coming up just over a year clean. Hey, I read the dates wrong. We're not all perfect here, but coming out of that coma, a few months recovery and going right back into it, moderately. I thought I could use, crack and meth moderately. That lasted all of a day. And this is my last time. This is my last time. This is my last. It was always the last time. I remember just recently having a conversation about with my wife. Now it was my girlfriend at the time. I remember sitting in my parents' driveway though, and not mentioning names or anything like that, but the guy's passed away now. It was a friend of mine. And I remember telling her, this guy's going to kill me. This guy's going to murder my family. The paranoia and everything setting in. And I was like, yeah. He thought I was an informant. But I know that was the drugs talking, like, and all these things. And the week before we were all good, but it's just crazy how mind and mood altering substances can really change someone. And usually not for the better. It's usually for the worse, like yourself, like myself. But by the grace of God, by the grace of whatever the hell is up there, higher power, whoever the hell you guys believe in, it doesn't, I'm no judge here. But we're both here, living testaments, sharing our stories. Mike's sharing his, I'm sharing tidbits of mine, but it's just amazing. We have two grown ass men. It's over time, man, but it's a true fact though, like that men are scared to share their feelings, or were. I've been seeing it more and more though, but we shouldn't be afraid though. Don't be afraid, people, to share your thoughts, share your feelings, share your real, raw, and authentic truth. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make you a pussy. And I'm truly grateful for having you on the show here to share those painful, real, and raw feelings, man. This is what can happen if you go down the path Mike went down or whatever. We're all addicts. We're all alcoholics. We're all cut from a different cloth, but we all walked the same path. We all took different paths, but we all ended up here the same way, man. We are sick and tired of being sick and tired, man. At the end of the day, that's the
That's right.
bottom line.
That's right, man. Same path. How is it? Same path, different shoes.
Something like that.
Something like that. But yeah, man. It's
But tomato,
it is.
tomato.
Well, I'll tell you one thing though. I wouldn't trade it for nothing, man. And I wouldn't, when in these moments, like when you said before, like those things, they do turn us into the worst. But For you to be your best self today, it's just what you had to go through, what I had to go through. And into turning into the worst came out the beauty, the most beautiful parts of ourselves, at least to date. And that's a magical thing in itself. So I try to not, what keeps me mentally strong is accepting the process for what it is. And the process really is that embracing some of that darkness and going to the depths that me and you have been to come to the light, to be where we are, may have just been a necessity for this to be what it is. And I just don't regret anything. My perspective today is priceless. The way I view the world is priceless. And those experiences to me are a gift, they're a treasure.
And we can't take life or anything for granted anymore because it could be all gone in an instant. Don't take your family, don't take your loved ones, don't take your kids for granted because we could all be gone tomorrow too either. I took life for granted way too many times. I played Russian roulette on a daily, on a hourly basis for many years. The shit that I was putting into my body. I don't even know, like my wife says, you have a horseshoe up your ass for the shit you've done. And I shouldn't take breathing for granted either, like she'll tell me, because she has asthma. And me smoking all this crack or all this meth, the shit that stuff does to your lungs. And here I am taking it for granted or smoking cigarettes or whatever the case may be. And here's my wife who has asthma, who never asked for
That's
that.
right.
You know what I mean?
That's-
Puts things into perspective for me when she says, don't take your lungs for granted. I have to use this medication on a daily, sometimes an hourly basis just to get through. And here we are just putting this fucking poison in our body. And I'm still alive. The shit that I did, I honestly can't even believe I'm alive. Like the things that I did, my thought processes are just like, and I think back is like, why the fuck would I do that or put my kids in danger or do this or do that? Driving around without insurance, running from ride programs, and I'm still here to live another day and talk about it. It's not even, at the time it's laughable, but really it's fuck, man. I should have woke up a long time ago. I'm glad I woke up when I did, because if I didn't take the path I did, I wouldn't be where I am today either. So I'm glad I took the path I did, but now I always think about that in the back of my mind. It's always in the back of my mind that it can change in an instant, just like a snap of a finger. I'm grateful that I get to see the people that are, and not because they're homeless, but I could have been one of those people too. But use compassion and empathy though too. That's one thing I struggle with lots of days too, because I didn't have a fucking heart. I don't know about you, man, but like I only thought about me right here. That's it. Even sometimes I gotta be put in my place by my wife. Chris, did you think about me before you just said what you said? It was always so selfish. Being an addict or an alcoholic, it was always about me. I never had to think about everyone else out there, but there's more people than just me out there. It's so true though. And
When you mention the gratitude is so important. If you're thankful, you don't have a lot of room for negativity for things. And if you look around in your life, I don't care what you're going through. I don't care even if you are homeless. You have something to be thankful for. And even if it's just opening your two eyes every day, it's a gift. And these are gifts to be here and experience things. And if if people could feed off of, there's some people have longer lists than others, but it doesn't, like, if people could really feed off the energy of being thankful for what they do have, I feel like that's what really helps me a lot now in staying on my path.
the idea of facing these painful truths though can be daunting for anyone though too. Can you talk about the strategies or mindset shifts you used to confront those painful reflections and ultimately find your path to recovery? I know we've talked a little bit, but what are some other things that you reflected on and confronted those painful reflections and truths about yourself?
So even though I never got into a program, I did start therapy, and I've been doing therapy now for 2 years, and
And it doesn't matter. Like I don't judge, man. I don't go to a 12-step program or anything like that
yeah,
either. I was on a wait list. I didn't get into treatment, but I knew I couldn't pick up another day because I knew it was I wasn't gonna have my kids or I wasn't gonna have my partner that I have as my wife today either. I just was one day at a time, man. I grinded it, but I love how you said that though too.
yeah. Thank you. I've been doing therapy and trying to face things about myself and really just take them in for what they are. Like, I was a very selfish person too, and facing how controlling of a person I used to be, I really thought I could move mountains if I went at it hard enough, that I could do anything. And I find now more power in letting go than I ever did in trying to run and control. Like, I find so much more power in letting go and having faith in being here. Just like you said before, when you said you don't even know how you're alive, right? Like, you don't even know how you're alive. That kind of answers a lot of things about how special you are to still be here. And when you really look at that, and you can accept that and take your worth from it, it makes it a lot easier to start knocking down the parts of us that served us for a long time in growing up, and the things that it worked for, but don't serve us anymore in this part of our life where, we came to a crash with the things that we were dealing with addiction wise and ruined our lives. That version of ourselves doesn't serve so much anymore. And I've been just trying to work on letting go of that side and accepting my new self for what it is, which is a much more grateful person, a much more forgiving person and compassionate, even when I need to try to be extra. Like, and then sometimes I get caught up in this old self of mine. I see myself acting these old ways, and I got to be aware and be like, this isn't me anymore. This is the same thing as me working on the alcohol and letting go of that. These parts of my being need to go too, because you can get sober. You could be sober fucking 10 years, and if you're still an asshole, it's going to come back to bite you in the ass if you're not. That's my opinion. If you're not working on certain aspects of yourself, if you're not living with good intention, and you could be as sober as you want, I still feel like things are going to come to haunt you, at least in your mental health. Now, to me, facing those things are ultimately what are going to set you free from yourself and this old self that kind of uh, almost destroyed our lives. At least I know mine. It almost took everything away from me.
I feel you there, man. It's like all about getting uncomfortable. That's where the growth happens. If you're not getting uncomfortable, growth is never going to happen. Like you said, facing those demons, facing the skeletons in the closet, whatever you want to call them. I'm unpacking things that keep popping up, and working through things. That's the main thing. Put in the effort. It's not about but if it happened like this or but if it happened like that, man. That's just stop making the excuses and go do them. I'm the procrastinator of all procrastinators. It'll get done tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes, man, if you just don't go do it. Or having to be asked to go do things. You shouldn't have to be asked as an adult either. There's so many more complexions that come after getting clean and sober. The mental illnesses that I have that come along with it, that I was just disguising them. So they were very well masked for many years. But once I got clean and sober, it was like, holy fuck, where did all this stuff come from? But having to deal with it and getting on the proper medication that I am on today to help me through those things, man. And I'm glad that you put that all into perspective too, man, because if you just get sober and that's it, basically white knuckling it, and you're still an asshole 10 years later, you're still an asshole. What growth have you done? What have you done to make yourself a better human being? Because like you said, it's just going to turn around and bite you in the ass down the road, man. Karma is a bitch and it will bite you eventually, man.
Hey,
And I've seen it come, man. You're like, my wife said that to me though, too. Shout out to my wife, Megan. She listens to my shows. Sometimes she puts me in my place. And just with the way I am or why I am the way I am to women. And it's the way I was for many years. But if don't retrain your brain. It's called practice, man. A new habit isn't formed if you don't do something every day either. It's all about practice. And you talking about therapy too, man. Therapy's huge. Therapy helps so many things, man. And I'm a firm believer in it as well, man. If you can afford it, or if you can't, there's places out there that'll do sliding scale. There's so many different options out there. Find something, do your research, do anything that's going to show growth on the mindset and stuff like that too. There's lots of things. If you're out there reading books, don't just read the book, actually put the work in that book's teaching you as well. Reading the book's great, but if you're not doing the work, what the fuck's the point in reading it too?
That's right. And Serge, if you don't have access to a lot of things, or you feel like you might not even be able to push yourself to access a lot of things, reach out for a connection online. There's so many people and so many communities.
Social media is powerful
Yeah.
if you use it properly.
If you use it properly, this is how we met. And look at us having a conversation tonight, connecting on something that we've been through that's so similar. And we are two totally different, completely different people on different parts of the world. And here we are, like, connecting over this. And there's so many more people out there going through this than everyone thinks. When I was dying, I thought I was alone. And I woke up to when I shared my story, so many people were reaching out, going through the same thing. I couldn't believe it. I thought I was alone. I'm on a planet with everyone going through the same thing. We're all going through it. We are not alone. Nobody's alone here. We are all going through it. Some choose to talk, some don't, but it's the truth.
Yeah, we're here being the voice for the voiceless too. That's what I love about this. There are people that, are afraid or have a fear of talking, and that's okay, man. You have those people that'll sit back on the back. It's like I'm the one that had to be at the front of the room, else I didn't ever learn. If I sat at the back, I just dicked around. And that's why I always was plucked at the front of the room, so I would do things in class sometimes. But I know you're out there listening, and if you're afraid to talk, it's always okay just to DM in private. It stays between you and I as well, or Mike and whoever at the same time. But don't be afraid to open up like that. Spark that conversation. This is how these conversations start, and we help one another. It's just one person helping another person at the end of the day with these conversations that we have. And if we keep having them and keep having them, that's where change is made as well. Your story, though, Mike, is a testament to the power of transformation and redemption, man. I love a good redemption story. But what advice would you give to others who may be struggling with addiction or facing difficult challenges in their lives based on your remarkable journey?
I would say my advice is it's such a tough thing for me to choose one thing or speak on one particular thing that could really help somebody in their darkest hour. I would say that ultimately, what's that saying? There's a saying that people, oh, I think it goes, people either get better by desperation or inspiration, right? Something like that. And as much as I'd love to say, save yourself the desperation, sometimes it's like what's needed. In my case, it's what was needed. And not that I'm suggesting that to anybody, but in all reality, if you can't be inspired out of the place that you're in, embrace and realize the place you're in and be aware of yourself. Be aware of what you're doing to yourself, the destruction and the chaos that you're bringing upon yourself. Step outside yourself for a minute, whatever you can, and look at yourself without biasm to your situation that you're trying to achieve and please, and really face yourself, because everything is going to come falling apart. The ultimate stabilizer of life is karma, and there's just only so much the human body can take living in such desperation. So face yourself, reach out for help. Don't sit feeling like it's too much to ask for help. I could have lost my life, my kids. I could have never saw my kids again over the fact that I couldn't get the courage to ask for help. You know, how fucking lucky am I to be here? How blessed am I to be here and to say this? There's so many that didn't get the same chance. And it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart, even being alive, thinking of those people that didn't get to realize this until it was too late. And face yourself, man. Get help if you need it.
It's so true, man. Don't sit at home and have that pity party for one, because it gets you nowhere. I thought having those pity parties or calling friends or whatever, but with pity and stuff like that, they didn't give a fuck, man. But at the end of the day, if you want the help, it is out there, everyone. You just got to seek it. There's so many different options. There's so many different avenues out there. The help is there if you want it, man, but you have to want it at the end of the day. No one else can make you. Go get that help if you need it. It's out there. And if there's one thing I can take away from today's show myself, it's don't take life for granted, because it can be stripped away from you at the end of it. Like right out from you, like pulling the magic carpet out right out from underneath you, like it was for yourself, man. So don't take life for granted, anyone, because it can be gone tomorrow. It can be gone in a minute, 5 minutes, an hour, whatever the case may be. But before we go though, Mike, man, I appreciate you coming on the show today to share your experience, man. That was a heartfelt message you delivered today, a heartfelt story. You hit some key points, and I hope someone takes away something. But where can everyone find you on Instagram, wherever you can? You got a website, you got anything, man? Let them know. Reach out to
Yeah.
Mike. He's always here, man. He answered my DM within a day or a few hours. I don't remember, man, but I was on actually Ryan Phillips. Him and Ryan Phillips run it live, man. Kudos to Ryan, man. He's an awesome dude too, man. So shout out to Ryan here. The marijuana kingpin of the West back in the day, man. The guy's got an incredible story himself, man. The things he's done, man, is incredible as well, man. He's making waves and still making waves today, man. But yeah, where can they find you, man?
You can find me at JerzeyMike with a Z, JerzeyMike on everything, YouTube or TikTok or Facebook, Instagram, all of those are the same. So
Nice. Thank you again for taking the time out of your day, Mike, and giving back to the show, sharing your story, man. I truly got a lot out of this, man, and I hope you all do too, man. But before we go, please take a moment and go hit that subscribe button over on YouTube for the show, man. It would be greatly appreciated. Let's build that following, man, spreading one story at a time. Thank you again, Mike.
thank you, man. Thank you for having me over.